And blessed to be a part of your day, joined by our great friend Lars Larson, back from California. Of course, you can catch Lars weeknights 6 to 9 on KIDO Talk Radio. Lars, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Kevin?
I'm glad you survived Stanford and the Hoover Institute.
Well, it's easy to survive the Hoover Institute, but we were laughing. Usually when you go on a remote, even a day or two, you have a technical problem or two. We had zero problems, and then Friday night an Uber driver almost killed us. So usually I trust Uber implicitly, and they're a very good transport. But, boy, Friday night we had a driver who ran a red light and did a number of other things that that were a little on the scary side. So I was happy to survive the Uber experience as well.
You know, Lars Larson, as someone who I think you take your show on the road more than anyone else, whether it's Washington, whether it's California, whether it's the Middle East, that's such a unique perspective that you add for the benefit of listeners here and across the country. Why do you go on the road so much? I mean, that's got to take a toll on you personally and professionally.
It takes a little bit of a toll, but I'm not crying in my beer. I like getting out of the studio. I like seeing and talking to the people that we broadcast to. And so when I take it on the road to various cities around the Northwest as well as around the country, we get a chance to meet a lot of people who listen to the show elsewhere, outside of, the home market. And you're right, there aren't a lot of talk hosts who like doing that. I enjoy doing it. I miss my wife, and she misses me while I'm gone, but oftentimes I'm able to buy her a ticket, and she comes with me. She didn't come on this last trip because she had a lot of grandmother duties at home, and she has a little business that she's running, so she needs to do that. But I enjoy it. In the case of Stanford and the Hoover Institute, we get a chance to talk to some very smart people. Some of them are people that we talk to on the phone, but it's really bizarre to be in a situation where you may talk to somebody. I may talk to somebody a couple of dozen times a year and only see them in person once or twice. And if I didn't go on the road, I wouldn't see them in person at all. And I think that would be a real tragedy. We got a chance to talk to former Secretary of State George Shultz. It was a very interesting interview. And we got a chance to talk to Thomas Sowell. And we talked to Victor Davis Hanson. And being able to see these people in person is a real treat for me. So I'll admit some of it is because I enjoy getting a chance to see these people face to face, but most of it is, and the thing is, once you've talked to somebody face to face, Kevin, if then you call them 3 or 4 months from now and say, can we get you for 5 minutes because there's an issue that's right in your wheelhouse and we'd like to talk to you about it, they tend to be more willing, and so do their staff members tend to be more willing to put them on the air with you because they know, oh, this is someone we've talked to. It's the same. I know that everybody who's listening who's in business says, well, of course, Lars, what are you, an idiot? Of course it's easier to do business with people and to talk to people if you've had a chance to shake their hand and maybe even break bread.
Our great friend Lars Larson joining us at KIDO Talk Radio. Catch him tonight at 6. So, Lars, it is, I could go on and on. Let's get to some of the big stories of the day. Obviously, the shooting in Nashville, a place you're familiar with, I'm familiar with, at the Waffle House. You have the hero who stopped the shooting, and now you have the mayor of Nashville calling to take the AR-15 to grab our guns. You as the strongest Second Amendment advocate that I know, your thoughts on another move to grab our guns?
Well, two things. Firstly, the fact that the hero was able to stop him was based on the hero's knowledge of firearms because he could see that the man was reloading. And it takes an incredible, I've never been in that position, but I could tell you that it takes an incredible amount of guts to rush somebody if you realize that they may be changing magazines and that you may have a space of just a few seconds to be able to rush them and knock them down and stop them from doing what they're doing, which is murdering people. And secondly, when they say, let's take them away, the police did take away the guns that this man used because he had an incident at the White House where he got into a protected area, and the police were told, take his guns away. I have to fault the police in this case, and I'm ordinarily a big fan of the police because they apparently returned the guns to the young man's father, who had promised not to give them back to his son. And instead of simply saying, we need to take those guns and we'll hold them under one of these new extreme risk protection orders or something like that. I'm not crazy about this situation, the idea of these extreme risk protection orders. But if the police say they're going to take the guns away and then they return the guns to the man's father And then the man gets his son's assurances that he won't do anything crazy, so he gives the guns back to his son, and his son goes out and shoots people. This is one of those situations where enforcement of the rule is the bigger problem than the rule. And we're constantly being told, please give us some new rules. And my answer to that is, please start enforcing the rules you already have.
Lars Larson joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Moving on to the White House, it seems as if the press is trying to get Michael Cohen to flip on the president. I don't know that Michael Cohen did anything wrong. You know Donald Trump. You've been there. What do you make of the latest move by the libs?
Well, first of all, there was an incredible violation of attorney-client privilege. And no matter what you think, our legal system is the best in the world. And one of the protections we're supposed to all have is the protection that when you go talk to your attorney, that conversation is private. And that you cannot, if you go talk to your priest, that conversation is private unless they can show probable cause to believe that there is evidence of a crime. I believe that this is more of Robert Mueller's attempt through the back door to find something on Donald Trump that he can go after, because at this point, he's been more than a year of looking into these Russia collusion allegations that haven't turned into anything at all. So he's anxious to show that his mission actually had a purpose. At this point, it doesn't appear to have had a purpose, and so they go after Trump to try and do a fishing expedition with his attorney. And I would tell people that the only time the police or a judge will give a warrant to allow you to search an attorney's office and violate that attorney-client privilege is if you believe one of two things. Either that the attorney himself has committed a crime, and then you're able to search. So let's say you had a local attorney who represents criminals. Of course, he's going to hear some things from those criminals that are incriminating, but those, as long as they're about past crimes. So a man who walks in and says, hey, I've been accused of drunk driving. Will you represent me? And the attorney asks you a lot of questions. I've never been in that position, but I know what happens. You tell the attorney exactly what happens. Whatever you tell him is private. Now, if the police said, well, this attorney is also involved in some financial fraud, well, they can go after the attorney for the financial fraud, but they cannot violate the attorney-client privilege between this attorney and most of his clients. And let's face it, about 90% of people who are arrested and charged with crimes in America are guilty of those crimes. We know that based on past history. So every attorney in Boise knows some information about criminals who've committed crimes, and the police are not allowed to simply obtain it, because otherwise your right against self-incrimination would go out the window. You'd sit down with your attorney and say to the attorney, yeah, I did punch the guy in the face, and I'm accused of assault. Can you defend me? And the attorney asks you for all the details, and then the police come marching in the door and take the information. Well, you're as good as convicted by your own words. Well, one of the strongest, themes in our Constitution is that individuals accused of crimes have certain rights: the right against self-incrimination and the right to consult an attorney in private. Well, I don't think they had what it took to be able to go in and raid the president's attorney, but I think they also knew that in the short run, their search would not be overturned by a judge. So in some ways, it's like the person who says, in the name of the police, I'm going to do something I know is illegal, it's unconstitutional, but by the time they actually show that it's illegal and unconstitutional, you've already rung that bell, and you can't unring the bell. So that's a problem. Secondly, our colleague Sean Hannity at Fox News, he was identified publicly as a client of this attorney. Now, first of all, I don't think it's accurate. I know Sean reasonably well. I mean, we're not close buddies, but we know each other through the business. We swap text messages occasionally. And this was something that was absolutely outrageous to do, and they did it merely as a way to try to get at America's conservatives by saying, we're going to out you. Well, Kevin, the very fact that you have consulted an attorney is your private business. If I called a firm in Boise and said, do you represent Kevin Miller? They're not even allowed to say, well, Kevin Miller's been in our office. He's talked to one of our attorneys, but he hasn't hired us yet. They're not even allowed to say that you have consulted one of their attorneys, because that would violate your rights. And, that's a very important principle. Instead, they walk into court and they out Hannity. Apparently, Hannity has never retained this attorney, has never had the attorney do any formal work, as he put it, has never received an invoice, meaning you might go And I'll tell you this, that my stepson and my daughter-in-law are getting divorced, right? About a year ago, we walked in with my stepson, and we consulted with an attorney because we kind of thought it was heading that direction. The fact that we had that consultation is our business and our business alone. So even for the liberals in your audience who might say, well, Trump, we hate Trump, so whatever you can do to get him. Well, if you start to allow that principle to operate in that way, you're effectively saying, when you go down to see an attorney, and let's say two business partners, one of them isn't happy, so he goes and consults an attorney and says, I'm thinking about breaking up the business. I want to leave this partnership. The fact that he's talking to the attorney and what he's talking about is his private business and no one else's. And the U.S. government should support that. Robert Mueller has turned that on its head in his quest to try to get something, anything that he can go after Trump on.
Our great friend Lars Larson joining us. You can catch him on social media. You can catch him tonight, 6 to 9. He's everywhere. And Lars, getting back to this issue involving attorney-client privilege, you covered this. You've covered, the news of the day for years, but we go back to the Obama administration and the abuses with James Rosen and the IRS and the NSA. Not to go too deep state on you so early in the morning, but, has the government gone out of control in violating our rights as individuals?
Yes, they have. And here's what citizens should be concerned about, Kevin, that when you have an agency that isn't capable of doing its own job correctly, and now we have the latest example of the FBI's incompetence in the Larry Nassar case involving all the young ladies who are gymnasts. Larry Nassar, there were people going to the authorities saying, Larry Nassar is doing things to our daughters, to our granddaughters. They're evil and disgusting, and they are criminal. And this was years ago. Over the weekend, another story broke. And here's another example where the FBI is, I guess, capable of being used as a weapon of politics, as they've been used on Trump, but they can't spot the Pulse nightclub shooter. They don't spot the two coming in, Tashin Malik and Syed Farouk in San Bernardino. They goof and goof and goof over and over and over again on the biggest issues of the day: terrorist attacks, little girls being molested by their doctor, things like that. But apparently, this may be, I think, because they're spending too much time focused on being a political weapon of whoever happens to be in charge. Now, if you're a Trump hater or a never-Trumper, you might be saying to yourself, well, this is a good thing because I don't like Trump anyway, so you do anything you can to him. Just understand that if the agencies of government, whether they're at the federal level or at the local level, your city, county, and state authorities, if the people in power can use those weapons against their political opponents, then when your guy is in charge or when the other party is in charge, it will be used against you. Now, I've found no evidence that the Trump administration has used the FBI or the IRS or the EPA or the other agencies that you just mentioned were used by Obama against his political opponents. But if this were to become the norm in America, whoever happens to be the king at a given time can use the apparatus of government to go after his or her opponents, then we are not going to be a representative government for very long at all.
Lars, what do you have cooking this week, sir?
Well, we have all kinds of things coming up this week. Of course, we'll be talking about all the issues of the Pacific Northwest. We'll be talking about the upcoming meeting with the dictator Kim in North Korea. And we'll be talking about the fact that Democrats apparently hate the president enough that they're ready to deny him a Secretary of State as he's heading into what I think will be an historic meeting with Kim. Because understand what's happened just in the last 5 or 6 days. Kim has said, I'm shutting down my nuclear test site. Kim has said, I'm going to stop testing ballistic missiles. Kim has said over the weekend, I have 3 American captives here. I might be able to see my way clear to release those. Now, he should release them anyway, but if he does this, heading up to this meeting with Trump, and if we get anything in the way of the beginnings of a deal that would denuclearize the North Korean or the Korean Peninsula, North Korea, and of course keep South Korea that way, this would be a benefit not just to North and South Korea, but it would be a benefit to the whole world. Understand that North Korea already has intercontinental ballistic missiles. And if you're worried that, they may not be able to hit accurately, don't worry about that. Worry about EMP, the electromagnetic pulse that can be generated by a weapon exploded 20 and 30 miles up. because if that happens, the electromagnetic pulse will permanently turn off everything that runs on an integrated circuit, which means every form of transportation, everything that pumps our water, pumps our sewage, runs our refrigerators, keeps ventilators on for critically ill patients. In other words, everything turns off. And the death toll on the West Coast, if he were to use one of the weapons that way, would be at least in the millions. It might be in the tens of millions of people who would die in the immediate aftermath of an EMP. So that's the kind of threat that we're up against. This has to be solved. No other president has come close. Not Bush, not Clinton, and certainly not Obama. But now Donald Trump may be on a path that leads him to something that will make America safer.
Lars, you're always working. We appreciate you making time for us today. Can't wait to hear what you have to say tonight.
It is a pleasure as always, Kevin, and I'm always glad to hear from people in Idaho and in your listening audience.
Have a great day, sir.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Our great friend Lars Larson. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. You know, I really enjoyed our interview with Steve Pankey on Friday. So much so it inspired another attempt at literacy or literature, take your pick, at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Looking at these debates, big debate tonight on public television. You're going to have Dr. Alquist, Congressman Labrador, Lieutenant Governor Little, and they'll be going back and forth, and I suppose this is going to be the big one, and then Channel 7 will have a big debate as well. But I think about this at 580-5436-580-KIDO, and I make the correlation last time around. You remember Walt Baines? You remember Walt from Emmett? Walt, hope you're doing well. You remember Harley Brown? You know, it's been a while since we've had Harley on. We'll see if we can make another run at Harley Brown. Harley Brown is a beloved folk hero here in the Treasure Valley. And they were on the debate stage the last time. In fact, when it was Governor Otter versus Russ Fulcher, Senator Fulcher, Governor Otter insisted that Harley Brown and Walt Baines be on stage. Now, Steve Pankey, conservative, who has spent, almost $300,000 of his money, is being denied access. I don't understand that. And that's one of the reasons why we kind of passed on the debate game, because who determines who's a legitimate candidate? If you run for office, if you're on the ballot, are you not a legitimate candidate? Now, in some states like Iowa and New Hampshire, they have criteria, but certainly if you spend a ton of money, shouldn't you be considered a legitimate candidate? And you heard Steve Pankey. He talked to Governor Otter, and Governor Otter said, we'll tell you in a minute, first, traffic and weather together, 8 and KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436-580-KIDO. So according to Steve Pankey, the governor said that he would talk to the lieutenant governor about this. And I said, well, you're the governor. Why don't you just do it? Anyway, for people that are just getting ready and just getting used to the candidates and the campaigns, and we'll be having them on all the time, and we appreciate Representative Christy Perry joining us today, and we'll have people running for Congress and lieutenant governor and governor until the end, and then afterwards we'll be at Terry's Cafe for a unity rally, hopefully getting everybody together before they have their official unity rally. It's always good to have people coming together over good food, and you get that at Terry's Cafe in Meridian. But at 580-5436-580-KIDO, where are the Harley Browns this time around? Where are the Steve Pankeys? Where are these people that have run legitimate races? Or maybe you agree with Idaho Public Television. I urged them. I said, look, why don't you let these guys in? You did the last time. Well, then people made a mockery of us. So what? Are you pandering for the big audience nationwide, or are you serving your constituents? And in reality, is there truly an independent media organization, an objective media organization in the state? Everybody picks their favorites. Look, we try to say that we have an open funnel. We do. We're not endorsing anybody. We're just letting it play out. And how it works is, you make a call and you come on the air. But I would like to see more diversity in the candidates on stage, wouldn't you? Let's talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good.
And before we get to your phone calls, hang in there. We go live to Washington, D.C., to the White House, actually. John Decker joining us from Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How are you doing today, Kevin?
Well, it's the start of another week, and, after the Sunday shows and there's speculation, the the president moves from the bullpen to the main stage. Your thoughts on the week ahead of President Trump?
Well, it's going to be a busy weekend, Kevin. Tomorrow, state visit by the French president, Emmanuel Macron. So a big welcoming ceremony at the White House tomorrow morning. There'll be a state dinner tomorrow night. The president's going to have a private dinner with both he and Melania Trump will host President and Mrs. Macron at Mount Vernon. So that will take place this evening. So it's a 3-day state visit, and President Macron will also address a joint session of Congress. So it should be very interesting to see what emerges. There's some differences between Macron and the president on the Iran nuclear deal, on the Paris Climate Change Accord, and it'll be interesting to see if they can find some common ground.
Watching the interview yesterday with Chris Wallace on Fox News Sunday, John, it was interesting to see President Macron. He was very humbled in coming to the White House and coming to see President Trump and visit America and to address Congress. It was interesting to see a foreign leader so humble. Is he different than what we've seen in the past out of French presidents?
I think so. First of all, he's 39 years old when he was elected president, which is pretty remarkable, right? That in and of itself is remarkable. He comes from the private sector, not a long-time politician like so many other French presidents, so he's different in that regard. Was a banker, so comes from the private sector like the president, and he bonds with the president. And, we saw that during the president's visit to Paris for last Bastille Day. The president's so impressed with that parade, and it is an impressive parade. I've seen it twice in person, that he said, you know what, we ought to have a parade of our own. And so we're going to have a parade right here in Washington in November, a military parade in Washington, D.C., and that's because the president was so impressed by what the French did and what they do every year on July 14th.
Of course, a big day coming up for Mike Pompeo. The president already working the phones, working the Twitter to support his, hopefully, Secretary of State, nominee currently, but would hopefully get him confirmed. There seem to be some challenges with that.
Well, there are some challenges. A vote is scheduled today in the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and it looks right now, unless Rand Paul changes his mind, like the votes will not be there for a positive review out of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. All Democrats are going to vote against Director Pompeo, and in addition to that, you also have the Rand Paul vote, and so that would be an unsatisfactory review coming out of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I still think he's going to get confirmed on the full floor of the Senate, and this is the president's choice. This is who he wants in his cabinet, who he wants to serve as Secretary of State. The president generally gets the right to do that. That's what elections are all about, and we'll see whether Rand Paul can get his arm twisted enough to see if he changes his vote here.
John Decker with us from Washington, live from the White House on KIDO Talk Radio from Fox News Radio. Finally, the North Korean talks seem to be heating up. Some speculate that this is nothing new with Kim, that we've heard from the Kims in the past. What's the reaction from Kim Jong-un saying he's going to shut down his proliferation, he's going to be a good Kim till this meeting? Does this mean the president might get a breakthrough?
It might be. At the same time, I think you have to take everything that Kim Jong-un says with a grain of salt. He's made lots of promises before and has reneged on those promises with other prior administrations. Look, I do take him at his word that he's going to stop with the testing. The big question, that's not really what the president wanted. What the president wants is denuclearization, and that's not something that he's agreed to, and I'm not very optimistic that he will agree to such a thing after meeting with President Trump.
I wonder if you'll be able to get on the trip for that historic summit.
Well, we'll see it. I think a lot of it depends upon where it is and when it is. But I certainly would love to go on that trip and report on, as you mentioned, Kevin, this would be historic. So, I think Sweden, Switzerland, some Asian countries as well have been mentioned as a possible location for such a summit. And I think that's what we're waiting to hear from the White House is where and when such a summit would take place.
John Decker, thank you for your time, sir. We always appreciate you.
Thanks a lot, Kevin. Have a great day.
You too. Our great friend John Decker joining us. Let's get to your phone calls at 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Hank in Boise. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Hank.
Good morning. On this one, I'm going to have to disagree with you. I for one thing, the last campaign, having Harley Brown in there and the other candidate in there was a distraction, and it helped to stop a lot of Russ Fulcher's momentum when Fulcher was closing up on Otter, and this was crucial. That's why Otter insisted on having it, because basically Harley is an entertaining distraction. He's not a serious candidate, and it turned the debate into a joke, and you can have potentially in the campaign maybe 10 candidates running. You'd have your debate would be total chaos if you included every candidate who ran. We do have elections like that where you may have 8, 9, particularly in the first congressional district campaign of Sally back in 2006. There were about 6, 7, 8 people running for that thing. I think it has to be determined by your three largest potential vote getters, and there have to be at least double digit in there. There's only 3 candidates that are serious candidates: Alquist, Brad Little, and of course Labrador.
But what about Steve Pankey, who has legitimately spent a ton of money to get his name out? Almost $300,000.
Pankey's in there, and I won't be surprised. I don't have any proof of that, but I wouldn't be surprised at Alquist behind the scenes is quietly supporting him. I don't know where Pankey would get that kind of money. He's not going to win. What his purpose in this race is to take votes away from Labrador, particularly up in the northern panhandle, which normally would go to Labrador, in order to make it easier for either Brad Little or Alquist to win the election. He cannot win on his own. He can take votes away from Labrador, and he's not going to win. He's not going to win the candidacy. I don't think, you know. And the other point I would like to make to you is that the TV station. I don't know about public radio or TV because taxpayer money is involved in it, but any private station has the right to make the terms of debate how they see fit. Now, it's not for the public to make that decision. Now, on public TV, I think that you could take some with it.
I disagree with you on that, because I've done these for years, and I will tell you, representing the private sector, you didn't exclude anyone. And I don't know why everybody all of a sudden is empowered to do this, but there could be, I'm sure people will be complaining now maybe these organizations still care about the Federal Elections Commission's complaints, but they should, because again, they're not there to elect a governor. They're there to serve the public, and that's what their license is about. Gosh knows I do that here behind the scenes for every one of these other stations, including this one. It's to serve the public, and if the public is not served by having just 3 candidates on, you know, again, I don't think that public television is being consistent. Then just say we're not independent. Governor Otter told us what to do this time, and he's telling us what to do this time again. You know, why do you have him on the last time and not have him on this time?
Well, of course, Otter, quite frankly, at least he said that at least the private parties that I'm aware of that he wanted Harley in for the distraction. He made no bones about it. But you didn't hear.
Well, but that's heard second or third hand. You don't know that.
Oh yes, but
so we have to cover ourselves here.
I wouldn't put past Butch, knowing Butch's behavior.
But you're not the most objective when it comes to Butch either.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's a lot after what I've seen firsthand about Butch.
Sure.
I can believe almost anything.
But we are talking about the debate process here. So, Hank, you and I are going to agree to disagree on this one.
Oh, okay. We'll settle on that.
Thank you, Hank.
Bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Let's go back to the phones, and we go to Liberty Linda joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberty Linda.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. It's sure nice listening to your show this morning.
Well,
wow.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh, always. And, while I'm for Tommy Alquist, all of your guests that you've had, thank you, by the way, sound like really great people. And, I just think Tommy Alquist is going to be the best for the people here in Idaho. But isn't it interesting how this race is really turning kind of hot?
Indeed. What do you say to people, though, that are not down with your candidate?
everyone has the right to make their own choice.
Right.
I really, I've known some of them. I like them, but like I said, my choice is Tommy Alquist, and I got that through prayer. So that's where I went to get my answer.
Well, you broke the story about him running before he even declared. You broke it right here before anybody knew.
Yeah, I know. I told Tom Muntz as well as soon as I heard about it. And anyway, I just think he's a wonderful person. He is a conservative. He loves the people here of Idaho, and I really do think he'll be the best governor. That's my choice.
Well, does he win?
Well, yeah, he's going to win.
You're calling it right now.
Absolutely. And, after hearing President Macron, I think he's a really good guy. He's going to get along with our president. And I'm looking forward to getting along with France.
All right. We always want to get along with France. Liberty Linda, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great day.
You too. Always appreciate Liberty Linda. Coming up, more of your phone calls on debates and candidates. And why don't we have all the candidates? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, Thank You Thursdays this week brought to you by the Boise Music Festival. Your chance to go to the Boise Music Festival. Family 4-packs free just by listening to us on Thank You Thursdays, which, by the way, will be at College of Western Idaho this week as well, thanks to Cap Ed Credit Union and Team Mazda Subaru. We go to the publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Bob. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. Hope you had a wonderful weekend.
I was watching this documentary on the guy who created Burt's Bees, and it was just, I don't know if you've ever seen that, but it's such a fascinating biography. That documentary, that's what I did this weekend. I don't know. What did you think of it?
I went to sleep when I saw it.
Well, I guess you're not
it was
down.
boring.
You're not down with Burt or his bees. What can we do for you today?
I like the honey, but I'm not into the movie. It just did not tickle my innards.
Well,
it wasn't one of those exciting ones.
We're all about tickling your innards here.
Well, I'd like to get down to some nitty gritty. We're getting down to the last few weeks of the primary, and you've had just about every candidate on that is either running for governor, lieutenant governor, or congressman for the 1st Congressional District. You have asked them about what they're going to do when they get into office, and just about every one of them you've talked to talks about fixing the most important problem we have in Idaho in the country, and that's how to reduce the cost of health care. And I have yet to hear any of them tell us just how they're going to do it, aside from increasing competition with the insurance companies by offering out-of-state insurance. I would like to know what they're going to do about the 400 retired doctors we have lost because we can't afford the cost. They can't afford the cost of malpractice insurance and a low payment schedule for Medicaid recipients. Or why they don't promote the use of chiropractors and acupuncturists who have been recognized by the AMA as being able to relieve pain that is now being treated with opioids. Don't we have an opioid crisis? How are they going to increase the competition with the insurance companies when you have behemoths like St. Al's and St. Luke's who own most of the doctors because they're in their networks? And how are they going to create competition with Blue Cross and Regents and Select Healthcare who control 90% of the health insurance market? I have yet to hear any of the candidates give a reasonable plan of attack to deliver the promises they're making. I would also like to hear candidates for governor tell us how they're going to cut taxes, because the only one who has addressed the problem is Congressman Labrador, who has across-the-board tax cuts of 5% for personal, corporate, sales tax. He wants to eliminate the grocery tax and eliminate the personal property tax. I hear lots of promises, but I don't hear anybody with a plan on how to do it. So would you please, when you get the next candidate on, ask them how? Because all I hear is, this is what I think I can do. How are you going to do it?
All right.
I would appreciate that.
And we appreciate you.
I think the people of Idaho would appreciate it. Thank you so much for having all these candidates on.
Back to tickling your innards.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good day.
All right. Tea Party Bob, GemStatePatriot.com. Check him out today. Mike in Weiser, thanks for your patience. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, Mike.
Hey, I just wanted to say something negative about Tommy Alquist, and that was, I've got about 20 flyers in the mail, and 5 of those flyers Some of them are 9 by 12 are his. He knows how to spend money, and he's probably got money. But I worry that if that will transfer over to your taxes, will he be ready to write checks like crazy? Because I think he is right now. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Mike, you comment anytime. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. 580-5436, 580-KIDO, 855. With Kevin Miller in the morning. Time to get you to work for it. And we go to Pro-Life joins us now at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, Tea Party Bob was saying none of the candidates have a plan, to reform health care. Michael Snyder's the only one that I've heard say that, listen, we needed to just get the government clear out of health care and let the free market sort all this out, and that is the real answer. And I think Tea Party Bob knows that, too. But about the governor's race, I hope they put Pankey on tonight. I don't know. I called him, and I hope a bunch of other people are. Now, I called Stephen Pankey, after we talked yesterday, I guess it was Friday. But anyway, I asked him the famous question, what are you going to do about transgender surgeries happening in Idaho? He said, well, I'll ask for legislation and do away with that. And then I also asked him, what are you going to do about all the babies getting killed before they're born? He said, I'll do away with that too. So I'm endorsing Steve Pankey.
So you're down with Pankey. What do you make of these debates? You've been involved in these. Sometimes they've even had you on. Is it fair that they're dissing a guy who spent all this money?
No, it is not fair. And because it's public television, tax-supported television, government-supported television, they need to put all the candidates, every one of them that's on the ballot for the Republican primary, and the Democrats are doing the same thing. There's a guy in our county out here named Peter Dill. He's a Democrat for governor, and nobody even knows about him because the Democrat Party's trying to keep him out of it because he's conservative. He'll take votes away from Belukoff, and Belukoff and his buddies are trying to dish Peter Dill. And I'm going to vote in the Democrat primary because I can't vote in the Republican.
Wait a minute, you've become a lib?
No, I'm a Constitution Party, and I can't get into the Republican primary. So the Democrats will let anybody vote in their primary, so I'm going to vote for Peter Dill. And people need to find out about Peter Dill. He's a great guy. He's a farmer out here in Kent County. But anyway, I told him to call you. Maybe you'd like to have him on. But anyway, here's a statistic.
Wait a minute. What's the inside skinny when you talk to the people at Idaho Public Television? How do they set these debates up? You've been here before.
Well, they have the League of Women's Voters. They have some media group. They got about 3 or 4 groups that all put a representative in there, and then they make the decision. And they shouldn't even have those groups making the decision. It just ought to look on the.
It sounds elitist. It sounds elitist to me.
It is. Whoever declares ought to be in there. Now the private TV and radio stations, like your station, you can choose to do whatever you want.
See, I disagree with that because you've got to serve the public. Pro-life, I have to run.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Ray Amaya. Great job kicking it off the week with us right here at KIDO Talk Radio. God bless and keep the faith.